headlines with our devastation.
We've also taken a lot of why they don't go farther to the west. We do have some video that's taken farther away from the river, but certainly the major devastation, and when you're flying along with the president, the officials are wanting to show him the very, very worst of it all. He flew directly over our studios as he headed east. We heard the copters quite loudly as we were bringing you live coverage of his arrival and subsequent departure onto the helicopter to take this tour. Certainly those officials want to take him down by the river where the devastation is worst. He can see as he flew over all of the homes that were at least up to their basements, if not a little deeper, right up in the middle of their one solitary rooftop still.
Again, the president heard the stories of hardship from members of the communities of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks and city officials, two very moving stories. Grand Forks Mayor Pat Owens choking back tears as she was telling the president that he is the bright star, the hope that they're looking for, the moral support for the community.
In a moment of as we often find in there, a sense of humor or ability to laugh in the face of just what seems like unsurmountable problems and just an unsurmountable task. A little bit of levity is good, and as the president was getting to depart Air Force One, we happened to catch with our cameras out at the tarmac, Mayor and Governor Schaefer checking their hair for each other and making sure they looked okay. We know for sure that the mayor's had very little sleep in the last 5 days, and she still, though, wanted to look her best. And in the one story we saw from whatever source it was now, where she mentioned that she wondered what she should wear for the president.
Well, apparently we have some video now from reporter David Schwab and photographer Chris Regenball. Again, the people up in the Northern Valley are watching the situation in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks closely, and people are already evacuating in the Northern Valley. And here's the story.
The Red River continues its rush north, spreading out in some places over 40 miles wide, surrounding farmyards, covering farmland. U.S. Senator Kent Conrad toured Pembina County along the Red by helicopter.
This amount of water, that wall of water coming north that we saw, it's as far as the eye can see.
Volunteers are constructing wooden levees on top of the 2 miles of clay dike that ring the city. The town's 1,000 residents were forced to evacuate around 3 o'clock this morning when a crack in the dike was reported. Drayton Mayor Beverly Jensen says after seeing the devastation in Grand Forks, residents left without hesitation.
People cooperated when we said evacuate, and I'm sure your experiences, those lessons were so shocking.
Further north in the town of Pembina, Conrad received a warm welcome by Mayor Hetty Walker. Here, residents have yet to prepare for a record crest. Walker says the Army Corps of Engineers left without giving her a reason, and since the town was placed under a mandatory evacuation, residents could only stand by and watch their town go under. But Walker says her town wants to fight.
I'd like to see the Corps of Engineers come and build it up and tell us, hey, come on, let's build up this dike a little bit more. It looks like you need more. It has settled maybe, I don't know, but we just got to.
After 15 minutes of phone calls, Conrad arranged for a private contractor to begin work on the dikes.
And I've told him, look, these people are ready to continue the fight. They're not throwing in the towel.
Words that offered Pembina a second chance to defend their home against the Red. In Pembina with photographer Chris Regenball, David Schwab, WDAZ, News Center 8.
And certainly Hetty Walker has been in contact with us many times, trying to keep us abreast of what's going on in Pembina. And we wish them well and hope that they don't see the same sort of devastation that we have.
And in northwest Minnesota, most of the 200 or so people living near the Red River in Minnesota's most northwesternmost county have left their homes. Kitson County Emergency Manager Gary Rice says that unlike any unlike people in some other places, Kittson County residents did have enough time to collect their most precious belongings and plug their drains and secure their homes as best they could. Hopefully they don't experience the same devastation as we are here in the greater Grand Forks area.
Pembina County also was going to ordered a mandatory evacuation earlier this morning, wanted everybody out by 6 o'clock, or was it 10 o'clock today, but they decided the Weather Service pushed their crest dates back a little bit, so they decided to give their residents a little bit more time. What it is about the eastern 15% of Pembina County has been asked to evacuate by tomorrow, pretty much ordered to evacuate or you will be arrested, says the Pembina County Sheriff's Department. But people have one day reprieve to try and get their stuff out.
Again, you're looking at some pictures from downtown, or not downtown, but 24th Avenue near WDAZ Studios. Photographer Chris Regenball walking through the neighborhood, again getting a better idea of what the flooding situation is like here. Well, we'll leave you with these images tonight. We thank you for joining us. We'll bring you continuous flood coverage throughout the week. Thank you for joining us on News Center 8.
Good night.
This has been a special Flood of 97 program. We now join our regularly scheduled program.
Good evening. This is meteorologist John Wheeler. Fargo-Moorhead hit forecast for tonight, clear to partly cloudy, and tomorrow more of the same, sunny to partly cloudy. Our high tomorrow near 60.
Shooting the whole time out the window?
He didn't get to the window for a while, but Doug had to do a stand-up, so Craig in there. Now he's got to stop again.
Grand Forks. Phil, tell us, what does it mean? You've had a lot of experience in the political arena, and of course you're a longtime resident of Grand Forks. What does it mean at a time like this for the president to come and pay a visit?
Well, I think it means a lot to the people, mainly, because it means that the chief government leader is here, and of course returning a city back to where it would be would of course hinge quite a bit on how the government responds. And that means the infrastructure, what will be done with roads, what will be done with, for example, the water treatment plant, sewage systems, simple things such as street lights, whether or not there will be government monies available to keep programs running that have federal dollars that flow through to the state and local governments. And it's basically a message that, that the nation stands ready, I think, to help the people of Grand Forks. But mainly right now what you're seeing is the government stands ready to help the government. And without the government in place, it's very difficult for the people to return to some semblance of order themselves.
We see on the screen here the president greeting Governor Schaefer of North Dakota. That's Governor Arnie Carlson of Minnesota next to him. Excuse me. A moment ago behind him, and we'll probably see it again, James Lee Witt, the Federal Emergency Management Agency Director, who was in Fargo just last week. He's traveling with the president, as is, I believe, Donna Shalala, the Human Services Cabinet Executive. The president there is getting a hug and a pat on the back from Pat Owens. You know, Phil, you'd think that should go the other way around, maybe.
Yeah,
it's like
really.
she's consoling him.
Well, but that's the spirit of Pat Owens. Pat Owens is one who not only has led her people, frankly, very well, but she also is an individual who is a very steady source of strength.
Obviously, the river channel is somewhere in the middle of that expanse of water, the real river channel, probably right down there between those two rows of trees. But this gives you a pretty good idea of how wide the Red River has become. It may not be excessively deep in any of those particular areas, but in some it is, and it's seriously spread across the northern valley.
Well, what also happens is that you see this wide expanse of water from the air, and it frankly, after a while, becomes...
It all looks alike.
You're right.
I mean, you hate to say that sort of thing.
It really does.
You've seen floods, unless you can pick out landmarks that you know, it begins to just look like flooded material. So
right.
That's why we say it's better to see it from the ground level.
And the people that we have connected with, for example, we kept driving to Woodbury, Minnesota, where we're staying with some friends there for, we don't know how long, frankly, but the people that are in the Minneapolis area, and there are a lot, are just craving information, not only from the print media, but they would really love to have the video media, the broadcast
kind of video,
media, basically just to do a slow scan of the city, because much of the coverage has been on the downtown portion to where
the fire was.
Precisely, where where the real heavy visual impact is. But the people in that particular area are yearning for lower shots, basically a sweep of the town, to give them an idea of what would be or what may be required for them to get their feet back under them. As an example, in our area, if we are fortunate enough, in my particular situation, we live in a split level, if it's fortunate enough to not reach the top level or a split level, that makes a big difference. Oh, very much so, because we had an opportunity to move some of our, some of our furniture, some of our valuables up to the upper level. But if it did encroach in the upper level, then basically it's, then we're well into six figures, you know, as far as taking care of cleaning up that. But if it's...
But we are seeing some residential neighborhoods here. And it's obvious the water has covered a vast expanse. You know, people will second guess on this for years, but I'm guessing it would be almost impossible to dike Grand Forks and East Grand Forks to 54 feet.
Well, you'd have to take out large portions of the town. You'd have to take out large portions, as I said, of the residential area. And in fact, one
to make room for the dike.
One of the reasons that the president would be here, of course, is if those kinds of decisions are to be made, then, of course, the federal government, through its power of eminent domain, would have to be in condemnation proceedings on, say, for example, and folks probably won't like to hear things like this, but entire residential sections of, say, Riverside Park or Central Park, to basically straighten out the channel, put the dikes far enough apart, and then build them fairly high with a large ring dike system that when the water reaches a certain level, floodgates would close, say, on the south end of town and divert water away.
Right.
I mean, there are mechanisms to do it, but I'm thinking that when the federal government begins to calculate the damages on this one-time occurrence, that they may very well consider those kinds of efforts, because it doesn't make a lot of sense for an individual to say, here is X number of dollars for your home, go repair it, and then let's play the odds again.
And 20 years from now, have something almost as bad happen.
Right, and so that's where you get into the situation that at the federal government, the state government, and the local level, they need to start making the decisions like, all right, what are we really going to say that's going to be the greatest use or the best use for the greatest number of people? The problem, again, however, is those decisions will have to be made in very short order, because 3 weeks, a month, 5 weeks from now, people in those areas will want to get back in and start repairing.
Now we have a bridge appearing here. This is the actual river channel, a railroad bridge, and then
well, this is a shot from
we're coming from East Grand Forks
right.
to Grand Forks.
The building, the building just now going off to your right of your screen, that white building is where the Grand Forks Education Center is. That's the old Griffiths building.
Here's the courthouse.
The courthouse right is in the lower
police
level.
Station. So what we had been seeing so far were residential areas of East Grand Forks.
Right.
And now we're circling the downtown of Grand Forks. Doesn't look like the water's gone down any since 2 days ago. If anything, it's come up a little bit.
Well, in the upper part of the screen right now is Grand Forks Central High School. Across the street there is the building where US West is located, and they're doing everything possible to keep those telephone systems up and running.
The burned out structures are just in the upper left hand there.
Building
now
right
we're
in the
circling around them there. That's where the fire started.
Right.
The security building on the end of that block, there are 6 buildings burned out there. And then I haven't quite figured this out yet. It must have been a wind-blown spark. It's like it jumped kitty corner.
Right, in fact,
into that other block behind.
There were some cinders, as you know, blowing up.
Over to the First National Bank buildings.
Okay. The river is right below us. In fact, the trees, just to your lower left, those trees are on the river bank.
Now, which bridge?
This is a walking bridge right here, and then this is the Sorley Bridge.
Sorley Bridge.
That goes right down Demers Avenue, right through the center of both East Grand Forks, Minnesota, and Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Someone called us and wondered if we had any idea of how fast the water is moving in there, how many knots, I guess. I read one account in the newspaper yesterday that in town the river was moving at, in some places, as much as 15 knots. So you have to believe it's going faster out in the main channel. And we know from our experience here in Fargo last week, everyone was somewhat surprised at how fast the water was moving in the main channel between Fargo and Moorhead.
Well, I was helping with some of the diking and sandbagging and that sort of thing, as well as some other on-air duties that I had. And I recall watching ice chunks flowing down that river at a rate of speed that I certainly wouldn't want to.
You wouldn't want to be in the way.
No, no one would want to.
Even in a boat.
Exactly.
Now we're into some residential sections of Grand Forks. I believe we're heading
south, right.
The river would be just off to our left. So are we kind of looking toward the Belmont Road area?
Well, we're still downtown. In fact, what you're seeing in the trying to find the end of what would have been the dike. Now you're seeing right now you're in the Central Park area of what.
Look at those rooftops on there.
And that is right below the dike, though. So I mean, that's in fact that's Lincoln School that just went by us right there. You can see between the trees there is the natural course of the river. And so you're seeing right below us is the East Grand Forks side, of course, the treed area there.
And then southwest.
This is Lincoln Park. You're looking at Lincoln Park Golf Course right now. That's a pretty big water hazard, Charlie.
Yeah, yes, it is. Good you can maintain your sense of humor, Phil.
All right.
Not
well,
much else you can do, I guess.
No. In fact, in the cities, we're getting gallows humor down fairly well because you almost have to in a situation like this. We're still
heading south down the river.
Heading south. Now we're getting into the south end of Grand Forks to where the homes are of a bit more expense. This is where an incredible diking effort occurred, as well as it did all over town, but there was an effort to dike off Belmont Road with sandbags at what was called the Belmont Court area. And it held for quite a while.
Our photographer here has tried to go in a little too tight, I'm afraid, for that chopper, but it gives you a little bit. There are some dikes that obviously did not do the trick, as very few could under these circumstances.
Well, there were neighborhood efforts to dike, and then as neighborhoods were basically being evacuated, or at least the potential for evacuation, individual homes then began to, in essence, circle the wagon, so to speak, and do whatever they could. This is an area now called Sunbeam. There are some areas that it appears there are patches of driveways showing.
Yeah. Some that are built on higher ground.
Some are built on higher ground.
Swimming pool.
So those people, other than probably seepage in basements, that sort of thing, might be fine. You can see sandbags in the front.
Dikes holding there around those houses.
Or at least to some extent they seem to be holding.
But not there. But yeah, you do see some yards that obviously they're just built up on mounds, it would appear.
Well, they were obviously built up on mounds, but they were close to the river in an attempt. And when people were building and shooting their elevations, thinking 53, 54 feet, they were basically, as valley jargon would go, they're building on mountains to keep them above water. And who would have known that in fact it would have taken a virtual mountaintop to save those residences.
For some of them, it may have paid off here.
Some.
You see some houses with a couple of apartment complexes there. But for most of them, they're well underwater. It looks like on a lot of these homes in this area, the waters are up midway to the main floor windows, you think? Near as I can tell, except for those that are built up.
See, that's why it's really hard to tell with a perspective from the air like that, other than actually walking by a home. It's pretty tough to tell.
Yeah. Now, is this, I'm trying to tell which way we've angled here. Are we looking back up Washington?
Well, no, that is, that would be 47th Avenue, 47th Avenue South. There was an attempt at a dike. This is an open field. In fact, this is the field where much of the clay was taken to build the dikes, both downtown and in some other areas. Now we're moving into an area called, if we keep moving, we're moving easterly now, at least the picture is. Moving into potentially an area that would be referred to as the Burke Addition, but it's, I'm sorry, it's right below us here. Sorry, because of
We've gone right over it.
Yep. It's giving you a real good idea, though, of what the overland flooding is in this particular area.
Unbelievable.
There was a massive effort to save homes out in this particular area because it was a situation that there were 3 or 4 homes built together in little pockets, and those families would get together and friends from their work sites, from their offspring's friends, you know, our families, we were under the impression that we were going to be high and dry, and so whenever a call came, you know, we'd send out our senior and high school daughter and our freshman daughter and my spouse, and we were similarly situated. You know, we would all go out and and fight it, and
still seeing some unmelted snow here, of course, in some of these areas. The big drifts, some of which could be with us into May. There's a home surrounded.
However, it does look like that some of the diking efforts on those individual homes may have paid off somewhat.
I think in some of these cases, though, as you pointed out, it's just how high they built. It's not really, it wasn't so much the dike as it was the lay of the land.
I have watched the people in the EOC Center, the young engineers who have worked so hard on this project. One of them, the night the dikes were failing, called me aside and he was crying. And he said, it's my fault. I said, it's not your fault. I said, you have struggled till the end. You have worked as hard as you can. You have won because you have worked to the very end. There is nothing more you can do, but it is not your fault. And it was really tragic, the mental capacity of these people, because they were taking it upon themselves, because these individual dikes had failed, that it was their fault. Now we are all working together to rebuild. Some of the things that have come up are just overwhelming. I know in my heart why I am leading this city. The other night I had an opportunity to visit one of the shelters here on the base. It's at Eielson School. It is St. Anne's Guest Home and some of our special needs people. It was just overwhelming to see the support in there when you walk in there. I had an opportunity to meet 2 of my disabled people that I just always visit and just think the world of. And they had their pets in their apartment. There was a cat and 2 pet rats, which have kept them going for several years. And they had left their pets because they had to get out. They handed me their key and asked if I could get their pets out. Lo and behold, I knew the Lord was looking after us, because I turned around and here is a gentleman in a red vest with the National Humane Society written across it, and I handed the key over to him, and he took care of it. And I did not know it would be quite so easy. There was one lady in there who was waiting to go home. She couldn't wait to go home. I did not have the courage to tell her her building was one of the buildings that burnt downtown. We lost 11 buildings in a downtown fire. We cannot thank enough the armed forces and South Dakota and Park system who came in to fight that fire because we just could not do it on the ground. Our own firefighters who so diligently went in there and risked their lives to save 20 people who were in an apartment. They were very fortunate that they could get those people out. Right now, I believe where we are at is the reality is hit. We have to get back to some form of normalcy. We are in our recovery period. The time is now. I think of Mrs. Clinton's words, and she used it with the children. But right now, all of us together, the whole population, it's going to take a village to rebuild. And we will work together, and we will rebuild. I cannot thank enough the agencies like FEMA and the Red Cross, the small business, job service, all the different agencies that have worked together to hold us through in the last several weeks as we have worked with these people. I believe in my heart at this point we have won the battle. We have lost no lives within the two communities. We have much to be thankful for because it was very, very hard to evacuate people. People were having a very difficult time leaving and turning away from their homes. But we are all here today, at least, to help build together. And we will rebuild. We have the spirit and love in the community like you have never seen in your life. People are upbeat, even though they are under duress and have lost everything they've worked for all their lives. They still have a kind word and still say, you know, we will rebuild, we will be stronger. What we need to do now is get people back on track. People need to know where is their paycheck coming from now, where they are going to live in the future, what are they going to do while they are rebuilding their homes, how can they get their small businesses started and so forth. So these are the types of things that we will need a lot of help from the agencies to put back on track. My greatest worry is we do not want to lose our citizens at this time. We want to have it as comfortable as possible for them while they try to rebuild their homes and businesses. And we as mayors will work with you to try and do this. And President Clinton, you give us hope. You are a bright star right now within our community. I believe you are part of the Midwest because you are a people person. I have seen that in you, and we thank you so much. Mr. Witt, you also. You have shown such great respect for the people of our community and what they are doing, and we thank you for what you have done for us. We have hope for the future because of the strength you have given us. You have given us courage in the face of devastation. You have given us faith, which has really been tested in the last several weeks. I come to one thing as I conclude today, and as I was walking with you, a phrase came to me, and I wrote it down. And I believe within our communities, the people that have lost their homes and possibly lost their business and all their possessions have had a tear in their eye and wiped it and went on to help the other people within the community, which has just amazed me. I tell you, I am so proud to lead this community. But one of the phrases I have in my heart, with you people here helping us, is the phrase from the Bible that says, "It's my brother, he's not heavy, and we will rebuild, and we will be much stronger in the future." And we will be there. Lynn Stouse and I will be in the boat till the last dog leaves. We have worked together, and we just cannot thank you enough for bringing us hope for our communities. And like I said, we will rebuild. The hardest part is going to be when people are taken back to their homes, and we see what's happened there. But we will be there to be their strength and give them courage, and you have helped us to do that. And the next time you come, you will see a city back thriving. So thank you.
You know, building after building after building that is just right down, you know, right in the center, in the core of Grand Forks. I went to school here at the University of North Dakota, not to the whole thing, and it's kind of like everything spreads out from that center pin, and it looks pretty bad. Thanks, Ed, and I trust things are going reasonably well in Fargo these days. I've spoken to the mayor and the EOC down there, and things seem to be riding the storm out there pretty good, huh? How many hours painting that little picket fence, every little doodad on there, and now it's underwater. Wow. Well, it's just hard to believe the emotional impact of seeing this, and seeing the destruction of people's homes and all their belongings, seeing a virtual ghost town here with no activity, no lights, no traffic moving. It's really hard to comprehend. Obviously, this is going to be a long-term rebuilding process. This water's going to be here for a while, and when it goes down, you can see there's, junk floating in the water. There's a lot of mud. There's going to be just an awful long cleanup, and I'm concerned about just the emotional impact that the whole community is going to have of their center of activity, their town community, kind of the spot where it all starts is just. It's going to be destroyed for a long time, and I don't know. It's really hard to even express one's depths of feelings on this situation.
Do you think the necessary help will be there for the people when the waters go down?
I do. I think we're going to have a strong recovery program. I sat with the mayor yesterday, with the city engineer. We started to map out the recovery process, how we're going to get people back into their homes safely, securely, how we're going to get the businesses back started up. I had a cabinet meeting yesterday in Bismarck with all our state agencies to start focusing the dollars, but the attention on Grand Forks as well. Economic development, obviously job service, human services, how we're going to, start to rebuild this community from a personal standpoint as well as physically. I think it can go well. It does give you an opportunity to take a step back and say, if we get a chance to redesign our community, how would you like it to be put in place with the contemporary needs of today? And I think, that's going to be an opportunity here. I think the federal government is going to be a strong partner in rebuilding North Dakota. I think
the federal government should contribute the maximum on this, 90% or more?
I do. I have asked the president to increase the share of funding from the feds. And if I look at this, this to me is as much of a disaster as, the huge fires and problems in California, the hurricanes in Florida. This is impacting over 10% of our population drastically right here. A big piece of our economy. It's our third largest community. The devastation that has been brought to North Dakota by Mother Nature here, I think is as destructive as any place in the United States. And that's kind of what our country is all about. It's that all of us in humanity gathering together to help out those in need. We obviously have these needs here, and I think the federal government can play a strong role in bringing back Grand Forks.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by Brigadier General Kenneth Hess.
Good for you. Boy, what a crowd. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and fellow North Dakotans. On behalf of the 6,000 active duty men and women, civilians, and their families who are the warriors of the North, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to Grand Forks Air Force Base. I'm going to pause just a second from my script because I've got such a great audience here and tell you from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate everything that this base has done to make itself an integral part of this community and help during this disaster. The winter and spring of '97 has been long and an arduous journey, one whose memories have been burned into the minds of all of us. 8 blizzards, topped off by Hannah, who crippled the plains with her icy fury just a surprising few weeks ago. And the spring. We thought we knew the threat the spring would bring to this bountiful region of America. But no one, absolutely no one, could have imagined the full force of nature's fury that would be unleashed on this region. Well, we all know now. We can see it, we can feel it, and it weighs heavily on all our hearts. But our plight has unleashed another force, the compassion and the character of the American people, particularly those here in North Dakota. As evidence of this fact, our country's leaders are here today to see and sense firsthand what we all already know, that there is a big, big difference between devastation and defeat. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pride and honor that I'm able to introduce the President of the United States, President Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wait a minute, folks. I got to get these crutches right here. Thank you, General Hess. Let me begin by thanking everyone who is a part of the Grand Forks Air Force Base for what you do for our national security, and especially for what you have done to support the people of the Grand Forks communities in these last few days. I'm very proud of you. Thank you. As I think all of you know, I have just come from touring the devastation of the floods, as well as a very moving community meeting presided over by Mayor Owens, attended by Mayor Strauss and other mayors, the entire congressional delegation from North Dakota and from South Dakota, Senator Grams and Senator Wellstone from Minnesota, Congressman Colin Peterson from Minnesota, and the governors of North Dakota and Minnesota. It has been a very moving experience for all of us. 5 members of my cabinet are here, the Secretaries of Agriculture, Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, Transportation, and the Administrator of the Small Business Administration. The Secretary of the Army is here. We have all come, first of all, to see firsthand what it is you've been going through. Secondly, to pledge to do our part to help make you whole. And thirdly, to tell you that we're for you. We have hardly ever seen such a remarkable demonstration of courage and commitment and cooperation and basic human strength, and we are very impressed and proud to be Americans when we see what you have done in the face of this terrible disaster. We know that this rebuilding is going to be a long-term prospect. And we also know that there are some very immediate and pressing human needs that many people have. Before I left this morning, I took some steps I wanted to tell you about. First, I authorized James Lee Witt and the Federal Emergency Management Agency to provide 100% of the direct federal assistance for all the emergency work that will be undertaken here. The second thing we did was to add to the counties already covered another 18 counties in South Dakota, in Minnesota, and 53 in South Dakota who need help. The third thing I did was to ask Congress to approve another $200 million in emergency funds for North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. Funds. These funds will be available for both short-term emergency response activities and for long-term efforts to help you rebuild. If approved, this action will bring to $488 million the total amount of disaster assistance that I have requested for the people of these 3 states. Now, let me say I say again, I know there are short-term immediate concerns. People who need a place to sleep, people who don't know where their next check is coming from, even people who don't have access to basic sanitary facilities except here on the air base. We are working to restore those things with your local community folks, and we had some specific talks about what we could do to get proper housing available while you're rebuilding your communities. That's up there. Anybody hurt? Well, we've had a fire, a flood, a blizzard. I guess we can take it, God. So anyway, we'll have our folks here, and there'll be lots of them. And if, let me just say, this is going to be this next few days. Our FEMA director, James Lee Witt, and I have been working on these things a long time. He was my emergency director when I was governor of Arkansas. I know what's going to happen. I've been through floods and tornadoes and terrible losses. The next few days are going to be very, very hard on a lot of people. A lot of you who've been very, very brave and courageous and helped your friends and neighbors it's going to sink in on you what you have been through and what has been lost. And I want to encourage all of you to really look out for each other in the next few days and be sensitive to the enormous emotional pressures that some of you will feel, and also kind of be good to yourselves. Understand you don't have to be ashamed if you're heartbroken. But it's going to be tough in the next few days. But I also want you to feel very resolute about the long run. I have asked Director Witt to head an interagency task force to develop a long-term plan for what our responsibilities are to help you rebuild and be stronger and better than ever. And believe me, it may be hard to believe now, but you can rebuild stronger and better than ever, and we're going to help you do that. And we want you to keep your eyes on that future. Let me also say, as I go back to Washington to ask the Congress to approve this emergency package, I will never forget what I have seen and heard here. 4 of your community leaders and who played various roles in the last several weeks, Ken Veen, Jim Schothorst, Randy Johnson, and Kurt Cruen, talked to me and to others in the meeting a few moments ago. I have seen the pictures of people battling the flames of the fire in the rising floods. I have seen rescue workers working around the clock even as they lost their own homes. I have seen people pitching in to rescue books from the University of North Dakota Library. I have read the last 3 days' editions of this newspaper. How in the world they kept producing a newspaper for you is beyond me, and you ought to be very proud of them for doing that. I read this morning that there's a message board right here that's covered with Authors for Free Housing all around, and that's the kind of spirit that will get everyone through this. with all the losses, I hope when this is bearing down on you in the next few days, you'll remember the enormous courage and shared pride and values and support that all of you have given each other. You have shown that when we think of our duties to one another, our own lives are better, that we're all stronger when we try to make sure our friends and neighbors are safe and strong as well. And no matter what you have lost in this terrible flood, what you have saved and strengthened and sharpened and shown to the world is infinitely better. And you should be very, very proud of it. I saw something your mayor said the other day that struck me in particular. She said, what makes a community a place to live in is not the buildings, it's the people, the spirit and faith that are in those people. Water cannot wash that away, and fire cannot burn that away, and a blizzard cannot freeze that away. And if you don't give it away, it will bring you back better than ever. And we'll be there with you every step of the way. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Doing the job, and of course you've been doing this behind the scenes for years.
Unbelievable. Howard
$1 billion to help flood victims in North Dakota. The president toured the city of Grand Forks, which has been ravaged by blizzards, floods, and fire in recent weeks. Terry Daniels reports.
President Clinton took a helicopter ride to get a bird's-eye view of the devastation. He saw entire neighborhoods with only rooftops visible. Smoke could still be seen in downtown, where a weekend fire destroyed 11 buildings.